Hello, I'm Clifton Jolly, the president of Advent Communications. I'm also the editor of MLMheadlines.com, and this is MLM Headlines Online News, which is supported by Lyconet and Lyconet Americas. And we're joined today by John Costino, the Chief Networking Officer of Lyconet Americas. John, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
I know from our conversation that you have been in network marketing almost as long as I have. Tell us a little bit about your early experience.
I have a very unique story. It's actually kind of funny how I ended up in the industry of home-based business and network marketing. I'd gone to college, studied math and marketing, and then went on to law school for a year when I realized I didn't have the passion for being an attorney. I wasn't comfortable with what it was going to be requiring me to do. So I decided after 4 years of college and 1 year of law school, being on the dad scholarship, that I was done. And I guess like most parents, he was not real thrilled with my decision. And after investing 5 years into my education, he decided that I needed to be a professional something. So to punish me for dropping out of school, he put me into network marketing. He was exposed to a company called NSA Water Filters, and he bought $12,000 worth of water filters and gave me two options. His first option was kind of nice. He said, "You're my son, I love you, and I'll always be your dad, but there's the door. Don't ever ask me for another dollar." And the second option was, we're going to go into business together. I bought them. You're going to sell them, and I'll finance the business till you figure out how to make it work.
How long did it take you to sell those first water filters?
Within about 6 months. As much as I didn't understand or agree with the concept of network marketing, I had been a collegiate swimmer, I was an athlete all my life, and my dad's a doctor, so I understood the importance of drinking water. And at the same time, it was when bottled water was gaining its momentum and people were paying $1 a gallon. So to me, these were little gift certificates where you could get 5,000 gallons of clean water for $200. So it was very easy for me to go out there and sell them. And at the same time, ironically, the reason I had a hard time with the opportunity and with the industry was people were investing $5,000 or more purchasing the water filters, but nobody sold them. They made their money by then recruiting somebody else to buy $5,000. So I basically went through and emptied everybody's basements and garages of all their water filters, and I made a lot of money, but it was a direct sales opportunity to me because I refused to go out there and recruit anybody.
All right, so you were kind of associated with a network marketing company, but you weren't doing network marketing. You were doing direct selling. You had kind of become the fuller brush salesman of MLM. So how did you actually get into network marketing? What was your first network marketing experience?
While I was doing direct sales and refusing to participate in the network marketing recruiting side of the business, my dad's punishment had another angle. He was sending me to training 3 weekends a month for 2 straight years to learn how to do the network marketing side of it, how to go out there and understand and share the opportunity. And I was studying under a gentleman that made over $1 million a month. So I was in front of one of the best, if not the best, network marketing trainers every weekend. But because I didn't agree with the company or the concept, I refused to apply any of the network marketing principles that I was being taught.
So let me get this straight. You dropped out of school and then wound up being in school.
Absolutely. All part of his master plan.
All right. So you got this training. What made you decide to actually get into network marketing?
Well, it didn't happen in the water filter business because, again, my integrity would not allow me to go out there and participate in something that didn't feel right. But in 1993, I was then introduced to another company that was a very early startup, and that concept made sense. It was the deregulation of the long-distance telecommunications industry, and the opportunity cost $500. And with that one company, a $500 investment one time made sense to me because at that time we could sincerely save people 30, 40, 50% off of their long distance bill. And if you can remember the early 90s, people had $300 and $400 phone bills. So I was okay with that. And the funny thing is I went from not recruiting anybody for 2 years to over the next 6 months becoming one of the top producers in the entire company, not because of anything special about me, but I got very passionate and enthusiastic about the opportunity for people to start a home-based business for, again, $500 and have the ability to sincerely save people money and leave them in a better position than when you first started talking to them.
And we've got another video in which you describe the system by which people can actually duplicate the success that you have had in network marketing proper. But that's not what you come to talk to us about today. Today you have come to talk about something that you call the problem. Tell us what that is.
There's a giant lie that we've all been taught, and I think it's something that was innocent at one point, but it's been said over and over that it's become a problem, and that's that you could go to school, study, come out of school, get a job, work hard for 40, 45 years, and then retire and enjoy your retirement. I'm 47, so I'm not what I would consider to be young anymore, but I'm not ready for retirement. And I've seen people who now have gotten into their early 60s and later struggle. In fact, the sad thing is our Social Security system, the pensions that people have been paying into, they were designed to give folks the opportunity to enjoy a peaceful retirement and enjoy themselves. And instead, I'm finding that people either can't afford to retire, or once they retire, they end up getting a second job. And that's not what it was painted out to be. And the real sad secret is it's only going to get worse. From what I've been able to research, we've been paying out in Social Security benefits more than we've been taking in for quite some time now. And that's simple math. Anything you look at, if you're paying more than you're bringing in, you're going to eventually go broke. And the problem is we can't control it. It's the federal government that's doing that. I don't know how it used to be, but today it really comes down to people waking up and making a personal choice. I reference the baby boomers all the time. It's a segment of our population that we all know about, and they've been talked about because they have had a massive impact on our society all the way through. And now baby boomers are getting to that retirement age. In fact, the very first baby boomer turned 65 January 1st, 2011. And while that's a great achievement and it's wonderful to talk about, they're turning 65 at a rate of over 8,000 per day, and it's going to go on for almost 20 years. So when you think about Social Security, you think about the systems designed to support us in our later years. 8,000 a day for 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years, that's going to put a tremendous burden on the system. And at the same time, we're not contributing from the workforce anywhere near what's being paid out. So it's a system that anybody thinking about has to realize is not going to work. And I think that's what alarmed me, because people don't seem to care or are unaware of it. And somebody's got to at least give them the opportunity to know that's not going to provide for your retirement. And if you're struggling to pay your bills while you're working, something's got to change.
Okay, John. So you are sending up a flare. You're putting up the flag. You're saying we're in trouble. Social Security, the IRA, your own savings plan, it's not going to be enough, or it's very likely not to be enough. What do people got to do?
Well, I could go on so many different angles with this, and I'll hit on one. The boomerang children. You know, I come from a generation, I was born in 68, I graduated college in 1990, and again, as I was very fortunate, my father paid for college, but a lot of people didn't have that luxury. They took out college loans. College has become very expensive, and at the same time, jobs were disappearing. So you had all these kids graduating from college, unable to get jobs, so where'd they go? Right back home. That's why they're called the boomerang generation. Their parents sent them to college, and upon graduation, ended up living back at home, or in the lucky instance, with 3 or 4 roommates. But certainly not what the plan was after investing, $100,000 or more in a college education. So that system is still being used today, where people are being told, oh, go back and get a master's degree or a PhD, get a further education, putting yourself further in debt with the promise that you're going to get a job and it's going to take care of itself.
You're talking about someone like you or like me who grew up in entirely different decades. But nevertheless, by the time I entered the workforce, there were no more pension plans. We've got a lot of retired people who were on pensions during their working years. And aren't those people just a lot better off than we are?
Well, you would think so, because again, part of the great lie was work hard, contribute to your pension, pay your Social Security tax, and when you retire, we'll take good care of your money and give it back to you. I'm going to share some statistics with you, and I'm not asking anybody to believe me. Do your research, because when you do this research, it's staggering. When I last did my research in 2013, the federal government was underfunded by more than $700 billion in the United States pension program. And when you think about that, underfunded doesn't just affect me. Obviously, there's not going to be any money for me when I retire, but the people that are already retired, already receiving those benefits and counting on those benefits to live, there's no promise that they're going to have money for the rest of their lives. So it becomes worse and worse the more you look at it. The federal government is approaching $127 billion in unfunded liabilities. So that's in addition to the pension program. In fact, it gets worse when you look at different states. I'll give you a couple of examples, because when you look at states individually, it can be just as bad. The Illinois Teachers Retirement Fund was 58% underfunded, and that's a total of $336 billion. How could you possibly fix that? With about 134,000 active members in the Texas ERS at the end of the fiscal year 2013, the total unfunded liability was $7.2 billion. That's about $54,000 per active member. And then, one of the saddest examples is one we've heard a lot about. We hear about the state of California and how bad it is there. The state of California is underfunded by over $750 billion. So all I can say to you is the program that we all bought into is not working. We can't expect our pensions. We can't expect the federal government. We can't expect anyone to be there to take care of us if we expect to live past our working days.
All right, John, you've done a good job of indicating the nature of the problem and giving us some pretty good statistics, I think. But are you supported in these opinions? I mean, are other institutions, take the AARP for instance, do they agree with your analysis?
Well, it's funny that you bring them up, because when I was doing my research, I stumbled across some surveys that were done, one of which was done by AARP, which everybody knows is the American Association of Retired People, and really kind of an organization watching out for that retirement community. And they had some staggering statistics. One of the craziest was more than 50% of Americans aged 18 to 64, it's over 57 million people, have zero access to any type of retirement funds. I don't know how people are going to make that happen. That's what we're facing, and again, to the tune of 8,000 turning 65 a day, putting that financial burden on our government. Nearly half of all retired Americans rely on their Social Security as their principal source of income. So again, when that becomes a burden, half of the retired Americans, what are they supposed to do if that's their primary source of income? 36% of people aged 55 and older don't contribute to their own retirement plan. Why? Because they can't afford to pay their bills right now while they're still actively working, which really is the biggest problem here. They can't afford to put money away in savings while they're working. How are they ever going to retire? Another crazy stat, 24% have postponed their retirement upon hitting the age of 65 because they need more money to live. They can't afford to retire on their Social Security and their pensions alone. 70% of the people that were eligible to take their Social Security benefit early at the age of 62 did so out of financial hardship, even though it was going to lock them into a much smaller payout for the rest of their lives. Why? Because they needed that money to live now. They couldn't afford to live while they were working, so they took the benefit early. 35% rely totally upon their Social Security payments to live. They have no other income, and they have no other sources to help pay their expenses and their bills. But this is the one that just ties it all together. This is the one that really gets me upset. 40%, 4 out of 10 Americans, based on the study and survey by the AARP, these members have completely abandoned the idea of retirement. I'm going to say that again, completely abandoned the idea of retirement. They believe that they'll be working right up until the day they actually die. And I don't care what anybody says. That was on no one's game plan. That was nobody's agenda. That was not the deal anybody signed when they came out of college or bypassed college in the first place and said, I'm going to go work for somebody for the next 30, 40, 50 years. The plan was to find some type of an end game and enjoy life.
All right. You've scared the dickens out of me, John. And these statistics are great, but I think it's also useful to put a face on them. Do you have any real-world examples of people who have worked hard their whole lives, they've been successful, and they do not have golden years?
Yeah. In fact, I'll preface it by saying I want people to feel comfortable to do their own research. I don't expect anybody to believe what I'm saying, but I do want them to be shocked enough to go do the research. When we talk about the American dream, I'm going to share a story with you of an individual that I would say lived the American dream. He had a great career. He was in senior management, worked for decades, earning a significant six-figure income for a major corporation. I don't know if I'm allowed to use the name of the corporation on here, but the bottom line is it's not some guy that had a job. It was an extremely successful corporate executive for a major corporation, and after spending his entire career making a tremendous income, paid off his home, paid off his cars, not just paid off his college education, but paid off his children's education. So I want to ask you a question.
Wait a minute. This is supposed to be a horror story. That sounds like the American dream.
That's why I'm painting it, because let me ask you a question. How many people do you know that actually have paid their homes off?
No one. Okay.
How many people do you know that actually have 2 mortgages on that home? They're never going to own it. They are renting from the bank forever.
Yep.
But this is an individual who was able to pay it off. So if we were to say, if your home was paid off, so no mortgage, your vehicle's paid off, no car payments, no education, yours is paid off, your kids are paid off, can we agree those are some of the major expenses that people have?
Absolutely.
Okay, so they're all paid off. You have no debt in any of those areas. You're retired, and you've got a gigantic sum of money. Now, I don't know if I should say this statistic, but right now, can we agree there's an awful lot of folks that can't even spell savings account?
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't mean it to be, cocky or silly, but I ask people, are you putting anything away in savings? And they look at me like, I can barely pay my bills. I don't have a savings account. I'm juggling which bills I can afford to pay. Well, this is an individual who retired with, we'll just say, well over 50, much closer to $100,000 in savings, and all those bills were knocked out. So none of those debts that we're thinking about. Would we agree that that would be a success story to hit retirement age and to actually be able to say, my debts are covered and I've got a big pile of money to go enjoy life?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, here's the hard part of the story. He's in great health. Still sounds pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's outlived his money. He outlived his money. After that career and after taking care of everybody and being able to retire and enjoy his life, he now, because he's outlived his money, has 2 jobs. He's a product sampler at Sam's Club, giving away the free samples, and he works as a cook/cleanup janitor at a local country club. Now, does that sound like enjoying your golden years?
Sounds like fool's gold.
Well, I would say the same thing. He's not bitter about it. In fact, there's a tremendous video that you can watch online, and I encourage everybody to go watch this. The name is Tom Palome, Tompalome, Tom Palome.
Take a look at your screen. You'll see we've put the link. Make a note of it. Write it down. If you're on your computer, you can go and take a look at it right away. You'll see what I've seen. It's an alarming story.
The reason why I talk about this story, and I really try to drive the point home, is there are so many people who are working hard right now. They're not lazy. They're not asking for a handout. They're working hard right now. but they're not able to put anything away in savings. They can barely make their ends meet, and the reality of it is they're never going to be able to stop working. If you're not putting money into a savings account right now, and you haven't taken care of your mortgage, your car payments, your education, you haven't prepared for your children's education, how are you going to do that in retirement? And using Tom's story illustrates that most people, I'll say probably more than 95% of America would say, I wasn't in that good of a position ever. And if he couldn't make it work, how's anybody else going to? So clearly, that's why I say there's a problem. Because even using Tom's story, which is clearly the American success story, it didn't work out. Now, he does still get a little bit of a pension and Social Security, but it's less than $2,000 a month. So how are you supposed to live and enjoy life with that kind of a stipend, if you want to call it that?
You know, I feel almost like I'm in quicksand. I keep trying to get out, and I keep getting pulled back down. I am already into retirement age, and it's too late for me to get started. And there are a lot of people like me. They're so near to retirement, or believe they are so near, that it sounds hopeless to them as they listen to you talk about this. What do you have to say to them?
Well, I'll agree with you. It is a massive problem. It's a massive problem that nobody's talking about. But honestly, I think we've got a tremendous opportunity if we're willing to open our minds. The problem is the way we look at things. We all got sold that same story. And so people went out and they worked for 25 to 45 years, whether it was as an employee for a private company, a government employee. It doesn't matter. They bought into the employee mindset, which is what's developed when you go to school and you graduate, you go out and get a job. And that's the model we were sold. That's the model that's broken. There's another option. And that option is home-based business. Now, we already established I didn't choose home-based business. It was a punishment. It was something I was thrown into. But the irony is it ended up becoming a great career. And it's something that I actually embraced because I think deep down all of us would love to have some form of control of the amount of money we make and control of our time as far as you're going to work, but work your own schedule versus someone else's. So I'll simply say this. If we are willing to open our minds and look at the problem from a different angle, I think people will see that the glass is half full, not half empty, but only if we choose to see it that way.
And I have a sense, John, that you are bringing us to talk about Lyconet and the opportunity you're working with. And we're going to get to that in our very next segment. I'm Clifton Jolly, and we'll be back right after this.